has been saying for a very, very long time that India has been involved in terrorist actions in Balochistan. And this is not the first time. They have Kulbhushan Yadav refugees. Certainly a huge concern among the international community because if any active war starts in this region, so it is going to not only affect in the two countries, but also region and global politics. And one could see actually the television anchors actually shouting as they will dictate the policy, and they are already pushing Indian government to take certain action. In fact, actually, they are also talking about what kind of action Indian government should take. I think Pakistan has been saying for a very, very long time that India has been involved in terrorist actions in Balochistan. And this is not the first time. They have Kulbhushan Yadav, if you remember, an active service Indian officer was arrested. And I think probably in the past too, the ISPR has been presenting this kind of evidence. Certainly in this particular situation, it does actually become very important that they have given this evidence that the serving measure has been orchestrating or handling the terrorist activities in Balochistan, not only in Balochistan, but other parts of Pakistan. I think plausible, when you talk about plausible deniability, it has come from the country which has been sponsoring terrorism. Because on their part, one can say the plausible deniability, because they could easily say that they have nothing to do there. But not the country which has been targeted. I mean, it's not, it is not for them for plausible deniability, because it means completely different meaning, a different connotation, I must say. What actually Pakistan has been accusing India for a very, very long time for carrying covert operation. And as I said earlier, that after every terrorist action in Balochistan or in other part of the country, the military sources has been saying that India has been involved in that. So it is not, but certainly the way the strong evidence ISPR has presented this time, it gives much more substance to the charges, because they have come out with a very substantive evidence, and they have arrested a person who was being paid by Indian, and they have also intercepted his communication with Indian active service officer. So that it means actually it is the strongest evidence they have given after a very long time. It's a very serious situation. Yes, we have been on the brink many times in the past, and we have walked back from, both the countries have walked back from the brink. But this time it seems that things will be much more serious. India has already given indication that it is going to take action against Pakistan, but they have not yet specified what kind of action. But one can see that there is already a preparedness in India, and is also there's ceasefire line. The ceasefire line, yes, actually, which has been both the countries have been observing ceasefire. So LOC, line of control. So line of control is heating up now, and we have seen continuous exchange of fire. First small fires, and now the latest information coming from that area is that they have also been exchanging heavy military fires. So this is a very serious situation, and that's clear indication that India would or is thinking of targeting LOC, but one cannot be sure actually what their strategy is. But there are also some indication that instead of using ground troops of crossing over the border, they may use missiles attack, or maybe use the air force. So all those possibilities are there. But India seems to have become prisoner of its own the situation it has created, because it has whipped up so much nationalism and jingoism that one could see what is happening in India. so much actually talk about. Even all the TV channels have been giving this war plan and what India should do or what should it not do. So in this situation, it has also put the Modi government into pressure. But anyway, actually, Modi government has always taken this position that any kind of attack, it will directly blame Pakistan and take action. But the most important thing this time, what we have witnessed, is that they have failed to provide any concrete evidence of Pakistan's involvement in that. And it's also quite interesting that within few minutes, and India has started accusing Pakistan's involvement in that. But what we are hearing actually that there has also been massive crackdown on Kashmiri population. So it also shows some degree that India's own, frustration, because India has been giving or creating this impression that everything is fine in Kashmir, that things are controlled, and one can also, it is open for tourism. And people of Kashmir have accepted Indian action or unilateral action of abolishing 360, which has provided Kashmir some degree of autonomy. So all that actually perception or that myth has been shattered by this action. I'm not justifying this action. It's that any terrorist action is basically should be condemnable. But basically, why India is so jittery that it has given this impression that nobody is safe in Kashmir. And let's see what happens, but one cannot say for sure what will be Indian next step. One could see actually the television anchors actually shouting as they will dictate the policy, and they are already pushing Indian government to take certain action. In fact, actually, they are also talking about what kind of action Indian government should take. And is a hysteria that has been created, so basically, in this kind of situation, it does bring the government under huge pressure. And also, actually, what we have seen, actually, the reaction already, that is situation is very, very tense in Kashmir. And there has been reports of how the Indian forces are going after Kashmiris, whoever is slightly been suspected. And there are also reports of attacks on Muslim population and Kashmiri population in India. So it's basically they have created a situation when you are so loudly actually carrying this jingoistic rhetoric. It does have an effect on the population, and exactly what we are seeing in India. Obviously, Pakistani young person does not need to do that kind of thing, because there's no one actually who would be provoked or pressurizing Pakistan government to take action. Pakistan government is not actually taking, have taken a very, I think, probably sensible stance. It is nothing. There's no jingoism as such, and I think rightly so. So I think probably we cannot compare the two situations. There's a very different situation. And the other thing is that the incident has happened in India, not in Pakistan. There is certainly a huge concern among the international community, because if any active war starts in this region, so it is going to not only affect in the two countries, but also region and global politics, because it is a very dangerous situation. It is not an ordinary, countries going to war and then they can then stop it in time, because both countries are nuclear countries, and there is always a danger. I'm not saying that should be done, but there is always danger that once the situation gets out of control, then there is always a danger that any of these countries could resort to the more radical or more serious actions. And Pakistan has been saying that. And also one thing more actually, that Indian doctrine over the last several years, and that also was the basis of their attack on after Pulwama, this air incursion. That was the first time that Indian Air Force incurred into Pakistani space in a peace situation. But whatever happened later on, Pakistan's response. So it means actually that this doctrine of keeping the fighting below that nuclear threshold maybe actually is not right, because nobody knows actually what how the government, how the other country, when in time of, when they feel that their national security or their survival is under threat, then they were, means automatically there is a question that whether they will resort to the extreme, means missile or whatever actually. So there is always danger whenever it is easy to start a war, that we have seen in many countries, but nobody can, even the most powerful countries cannot command the outcome of the war, and then it can completely spin up the control, and it would become very difficult for even the aggressor to find an exit. So I think probably that is also the concern of international community, because if they go to war, then certainly they will be very much concerned, and that's what exactly we saw when the Pulwama attack. When Pakistan retaliated to Indian action, there was some kind of diplomatic channel or back channel diplomacy started. American Indians called Mike Pompeo, who was the Secretary of State, American Secretary of State at that point, and almost requested him to intervene, and that's how the situation was diffused. So certainly, but I'm not seeing at the moment actually that Indian international community will come into action before anything happens. I think probably they will also be seeing, and maybe actually there must be some kind of back channel efforts are being made to restrain both the countries. And I think, but I don't think that in the case of India it would work, because India is basically feels that it has to do something. As I said earlier, it has become the prisoner of its own situation that it has created. So let's see actually what happens if India acts. I don't know exactly what, but I don't think that will be ground troops. But even if the ground troops, they use ground troops to cross over the border, it will have a serious ramification.